Greetings and welcome. I am Justavor, bringing you what I hope is constructive information on what the system of white supremacy racism is and how it works, as well as what can be done to replace it with a system of justice. Superhumans, Black people and racism white supremacy in medicine. Are Black people superhuman in a system of white supremacy? A series of studies published in a 2014 issue of Social Psychological and Personality Science by Kelly Marie Hoffman, Sophie Trewalter, and Adam Waits, suspected racists, appear to point to the idea that people who classify themselves as white perceive people classified as Black as being superhuman or possessing supernatural abilities. Questions that come to mind are, what is meant by the terms superhuman and supernatural? Can one be superhuman or possess supernatural abilities and also be dominated and subjugated by those lacking these abilities in a system based on their racial classification? What are the implications of white people perceiving Black people to possess not only the ability to run faster and jump higher, but to feel less pain? Could it be that those who classify themselves as white are making excuses to justify their systemic mistreatment of those they have classified as not white? Or are these perceptions of non-white people's physical abilities compared to those of the average white person connected to white people's inferiority about their genetic recessive status? How do these racist perceptions of non-white people play out in the medical industry? And how are the lives of victims of racism white supremacy subsequently affected? Let's have a look and a listen to what this racially ambiguous alleged doctor has to say on the matter.
So this is how systemic racism actually affects medicine. A 2016 study looked at the perceptions that medical students and doctors had when it came to African American patients. What the study found was that there were medical students and doctors who believed that African Americans had a higher pain tolerance than any other race, which is actually not true. This was a false belief that many people had. You see, you cannot quantify pain and you can't compare pain tolerance between certain races just because it is impossible to do that. We all perceive pain differently and we all have a different tolerance for pain irregardless of what our race is or what the color of our skin is. But by believing that there are biological differences, many people, even doctors, believe that African Americans are able to tolerate more pain and thus African Americans often do not get the care they deserve and they need, which is wrong.
Interesting, is it not? But where do these racist pseudoscientific lies and perceptions begin? In her book entitled Medical Apartheid, Harriet A. Washington traced these perceptions to the enslavement of Africans in the southern states of the United States concept, when white enslavers, wishing to make the most of their exploitation of their enslaved victims, would do anything to keep the enslaved in the fields, working even when sick or deathly ill. In most cases, the sick, malnourished, and sometimes diseased enslaved victim of white supremacy would be accused of simply being lazy and was forced back to work. These enslavers will call in physicians to support the claims that an enslaved was pretending to be sick in order to avoid going to work. These white supremacist doctors, who supported the institution of formal slavery, were often called in only in the most extreme cases, as the safety and health care of the enslaved Africans were left to their white enslavers. It would be worth noting that enslaved Black people suspected of faking an illness and avoiding work were often beaten and abused in other ways to get them to return to work and to think twice before reporting any illnesses. Washington writes, "The belief in the eternal malingering of slaves was only one tenet of scientific racism, a wide body of mostly unflattering beliefs about the bodies and minds of people of African descent. These beliefs were presented as research findings, explained by scientific theories, and promulgated by whites who were sympathetic to or were actively profiting from the institution of enslavement. So, not surprisingly, scientific racism provided medical and scientific justifications for slavery." What about today? This video mentions the Hoffman et al. Study from 2016, which demonstrates that these same lies about the pain tolerance of Black people and other non-white people continue today and are being taught to medical students training to become doctors and nurses. Even Black students are taught to believe this lie. What are the ramifications of these falsehoods? Well, just like in formal slavery. Black people today are not receiving the adequate health care they need. Black patients are more likely to be ignored when reporting pain, and more likely to be given less pain medication than they actually need. This happens regardless of economic status. Yes, even wealthy Black people must deal with this form of racism and receive less adequate health care than their white counterparts. This falsehood about Black pain perception can also explain the rise in Black maternal mortality rates. According to a 2019 study by Vedum et al. In Reproductive Health, 22.5% of Black expectant mothers reported being mistreated by medical personnel in some fashion. And these were the ones who actually made a report, and the report was documented, mind you. Studies also found that Black babies had a 50% higher chance of being born prematurely, while being more likely to die when treated by white doctors. Studies also showed that having a Black doula or midwife increased the chances that Black mothers and their babies were more likely to survive birth and the period immediately following. But Black people are superhuman, right? Our gifted, God-given athleticism said so, right? Or could it be that dominant genes create the genetic potential to fully develop that which contributes directly to athletic abilities, and that melanin content is one identifier of that development due to possessing those dominant genes? On the flip side, could genetic recessiveness, which can result in a lack of melanin, also result in a lack of full development leading to lesser athletic abilities? Word to Dr. Frances Cress Welsing and the ISIS papers. Furthermore, what does it say about white people if non-white people, especially Black people, are like superhumans and white people still dominate them in and with a global system of white supremacy racism? Does this mean that white people are the so-called real humans? But according to Rudolph from Germany,
white people originating from Northern Europe are called not aliens, they are called Aryans. Sorry about that, my brain don't function so well today. These white people are not really human from this earth like Black people are, Indian people are, Asian people are. Yes, they are all humans. We white people are actually a minority, and we are, let's face the truth, also called the tall whites. Not all of us are tall, not all of us are completely white, but in general, that's what it is. And as some of you may know, the tall whites are not really earthly human, but we're coming out of space, out of another galaxy. We are not human as the rest of the human race. We came here from another star.
See, this is how confusion spreads. This is also why the code suggests that non-white people become adept at asking questions, especially of suspected races. I think it would be a constructive use of time and energy to address old Rudolph here in another video. But what are your thoughts regarding the racist history behind the perception of pain tolerance in Black people and how it plays out today? Do people who classify themselves as white seriously consider Black people to be superhuman? Or is this just an excuse, another excuse, for why suspected white supremacists treat non-white people with a lack of compassion when it comes to their medical needs? Which is better, justice or injustice? Justice meaning balance between people, guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person who needs help the most gets the most constructive help. Feel free to leave your questions, comments, and concerns. For more information about the purpose and goals of this channel, as well as some basic definitions of words and terms we use in reference to our work, I have included a link below to a video containing this information. If you would like an even better understanding of the code and how it works, please visit producejustice.com to order the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept by Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. There are many constructive suggestions for ending the system of white supremacy, and Mr. Fuller's Codebook and its word guide act as guides to getting and keeping on code. If you feel this content is constructive and worth your time and energy, please subscribe and share to support the making of more content in the future. Much appreciation to all the Vors already subscribed. I am Justavor, and I am still learning. Thank you for watching. Until next time.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.